Welcome to Did She Really Say That? The podcast for women who are done following the traditional business rules that don't serve us. I am your host, Katrina Van Housden, and in every episode, we break down what it really takes to scale your business as a woman. No burnout, no BS, no apologies. So if you're ready to discover how your natural female intelligence can become your biggest and most authentic advantage, grab your free guide at createherplanner.com/free. Now let's dive into today's episode. Well, welcome back to Did She Really Say That? And ladies, this is a conversation you want to turn up the volume. You want to lean in and listen to this because I've invited Kaitlyn, who is the founder and CEO of Theory Planning Partners. Sorry, I don't want to leave that off there. And it's a boutique wealth creation firm for top female entrepreneurs here in the United States specifically. One of the reasons I had Kaitlyn come onto this show for you to really dive into this is because what she's offering is a new paradigm shift that blends financial mastery with intuition, actions with intention, and strategy with stewardship. And I know when I talk to women about what wealth building looks like, it makes them feel a little icky. And what I love about what Kaitlyn brings is that she brings the humanity back into why we're using these tools and tactics as a way of building our wealth. So her mission is to accelerate wealth creation for women and their families by surrounding them with an exceptional team, unparalleled service, and an innovation fee structure that allows them to flourish over the long term. Some of the traditional ways out there that were built around financial institutions just no longer serve us. So through collaboration, transparency, empowerment, and objectivity are their highest values. Like she's someone I intuitively trust to have this conversation with you and our listeners, right? So she works exclusively with founders who are a mutually good fit. And this is typically a businesswoman of a privately held company generating from 7 to 8 figures in annual revenue, right? So she lives in Maryville, Michigan with her husband, her 3 children, and their awesome dog. So she loves this. And so she does a lot of traveling. She enjoys yoga, reading. But honestly, I just want to dive into this whole conversation around women and wealth because I get so much pushback, Kaitlyn, around I don't want that type of wealth from women. It just looks different for us. So let's talk about, first off, your origin. How did you get into this?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, I feel like I came out of the womb believing that I could do everything a man could do. And that led me to play ice hockey. And ice hockey eventually led me to prep school. And then I played in college. And when I got to college, I anticipated going in as an econ major because my dad and my grandfather were in finance. My grandfather was actually one of the first venture capitalists in the country, but particularly in Boston. And yeah, I just always saw myself going that direction. But then I got to Amherst and I realized I actually think psychology is way more fascinating. So I ended up majoring in psychology. I just loved learning about like what motivates us, what makes us tick, why do we make these decisions? It was just so fascinating. And looking back now, I'm so glad I did because I used my psych degree way more than I would have used an econ degree in what I do today. But anyway, I still had that pull towards finance. And so when I graduated from college, I ended up working at an asset management firm. And the mutual funds that were sold through that asset management firm were sold exclusively by financial advisors. And so I was introduced to the wealth management space and the financial advisor career path very early in my career. And as soon as I found out about it, I thought, wow, what an amazing marriage between my interests of finance and psychology. So I met my now husband at my first job, and we moved down to Louisiana for 5 years for his job. And that's when I made the switch from asset management to wealth management.
Mm.
And I first got into wealth management through the role of financial planning. And what blew my mind is this was like 2015, so not that long ago. I was responsible for introducing the financial advisors to the concept of taking a holistic approach to someone's financial life. And
Wait. We're talking 2015. We're like
mhm,
10 years ago. We're talking holistically, looking at the whole person, not just what's in their portfolio.
yeah.
Wow.
And planning softwares themselves at that time were only like 5 to 10 years old.
Wow.
So there were very few people in the wealth management space who were taking a holistic approach to advising people. It was a lot of like, there were suitability requirements like, hey, is it okay to sell this person this product?
Mm,
But there weren't a lot of conversations around like, is this the best thing? Is this like the highest and best use of this money given this person's goals? So I covered Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama by myself. And I was responsible for doing some of the financial plans for clients and then also like teaching advisors how to incorporate financial planning into their practices. And
wow.
so in that 2 year program, I did over 300 financial plans. And so I got like a really interesting flavor for a lot of different types of clients. We had like the oil rig worker with the Cajun accent who was just looking to retire. And then we had, first generation business owners, third generation, like $500 million trust. It was just like the whole gamut. And it was a great experience for me to start to figure out what do I want to do with this experience and who do I want to serve.
Mm,
And through that experience as a planner, so I did that for 2 years and then I became a private wealth advisor. And that's when I started working with like the 1% or the 1% of the 1%, which was fine. But it wasn't like ultimately super fulfilling. And I'm very candid about the fact that I went through a lot of sexual harassment when I was in the wealth management space to the point where I didn't feel safe. Like I did not feel like I could be successful in that realm and be safe at the same time.
I
And
want to, can I pause right here for our listeners? So, this is my next question about this, and I know I've talked with a lot of women that are starting to step into this. Is it still predominantly a male field in which we're walking into when we talk about money and finances and wealth building? Is that still predominantly a male-driven industry, even though we know we have the education and ability to step into these arenas and play in that same field with them?
yes, absolutely. Less than 25% of CFPs, certified financial planners, are women.
Less than 25%?
Hmm.
So it's still predominantly the good old boy club at that level of financing. And even, you mentioned working with the 1%. Is that still the good old boy club at that level? And
Oh,
so,
yeah,
how many
absolutely.
women, when you were up in there, out of curiosity, it could be general, but how many women were up there at that level with you? Was it just you, or was there a handful of you? Like, what did that look like during that time?
In terms of colleagues or clients?
Colleagues.
Okay. Well, for clients, there were none.
Wait a minute,
So,
hold on, shut the front door. Hold, wait, what?
yeah, that's the whole inspiration for theory is I never worked with a self-made woman.
You're effing kidding. Oh, I can say fucking, it's my podcast. You're fucking kidding me, right? Like, there's not a single at that point. There was a single woman at the 1%.
No.
Wow. Okay.
And then in terms of colleagues, there were a handful. So when I was in New Orleans, there were two female financial advisors out of, I want to say like 50. And in the New Orleans office, maybe 30. And then in private wealth, there were also two or three, and they were partners on teams, but they were not the lead advisor.
Interesting. Because I get that from like when we talk about wanting to talk to a wealth strategist or a financial advisor. Like I've even met with women. So funny. I met with a group of women in the park, and I just was introduced to them, and their husbands had been in the financial industries, and they had passed. So now they're working with somebody else to help manage their wealth and everything. They said like they just talk over my head. Like they don't look at me as a person. They look at what's in my portfolio, and I don't ever feel heard. And that's like one of the big things I often hear with women when we get to a level of financial wealth or we need a financial planner and we're using them, like it feels like it is an all male group and we're talking to like a wall and nothing's getting through.
My interesting take on that is this is going to sound confrontational, and I don't mean it to. I actually mean it to be quite compassionate. Is for most of them, I don't know that they have the courage
Mm.
to talk about emotions or the tools. It really felt like, no, that doesn't feel safe for them to go there. When really that's the whole thing. I mean, science tells us like we make decisions based off of emotions and then we rationalize with logic. But that feels like an unsafe place for most wealth managers or financial advisors to go. So they just don't go there.
Wow. And so this, you mentioned it, you kind of dripped in there, said this is what inspired you to start theory. So let's continue that, how theory came about. So we know that there was sexual harassment. We hear this a lot when you're in an all male dominant table, especially in the financial industry. Even the women that I've interviewed over the last year that are in and are at the table or creating the table, right? Talk about that is like they're still facing it today, which is crazy. Especially where we're at and how far we think we've come, that it's still so prevalent in those environments.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I mean, it was a shock to me. I mean, I'm someone who played college hockey. Like, I was never told no. Like,
Right.
I was always, the only girl on my team in the 90s. Like, if I wanted to do something, I was always told, yeah, you can do it. So I came out of college thinking like, yeah, I'm equal, right? And then, also living in the Northeast, like living in Massachusetts and then moving down to Louisiana was also another culture shock.
Culture
But
shock.
yeah, that could be a conversation for a different day. But anyway, so I became very disenchanted with the industry because of the sexual harassment experience.
Mm.
And that forced me to take a very hard look at the model and whether I was going to find that to be a fulfilling career or not. I mean, I am like a very deep person, like you can tell
I mean,
from.
with the psychology degree and everything else, like there is an intuitiveness and a sense of self. Like I get that even listening to you and just being in your presence, there's a calmingness to you. There's a sense of self-awareness to you. Like I feel that even in our very first meeting.
Oh, thank you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that reflection. Yeah, and I feel like a huge part of my purpose is to make people feel safe around money. So throwing jargon at them is not going to make them feel very comforted. And so, okay, so going back to the model. So I loved working with first generation business owners. I found them so dynamic, inspiring, optimistic. It just felt like a vibe fit.
Mm.
Um, but the model as it exists today is the assets under management model. It is like the most lucrative game in town. I just talked to a CPA 3 weeks ago and he was like, how do I get in on the AUM model? And I was like, ew, ick, no. But I know why you're asking me that because it's so lucrative. The hardest part is just getting the assets in the door.
Yeah.
So, like, Katrina, if you gave me $1 million, I'd charge you 1%. I'd make $10,000 a year off of your $1 million, which is growing with the market. So, I'm getting a pay raise without even really having to do anything or over deliver. And you don't feel or see the fee because it's coming directly out of the portfolio. So, the problem with that model, particularly for this first generation business owner, is it motivates all financial advisors to go after large sums of money,
Yes.
to go after the $10 million client, the $50 million client. And these companies, these wirehouses, I mean, they are businesses. So they have certain thresholds. They say you cannot take on anybody unless they have $500,000 in liquid assets. That neglects the majority of business owners. And I know from getting I'm also a certified exit planning advisor. I know from getting my SEPA designation, they say like 8 out of 10 founders will never sell. And the ninth one will sell for concessions. And the 10th business owner will achieve the exit that they want to achieve.
Wow.
So there are 8 people who are not getting access to financial advice that could truly change the trajectory of their life. And that was the problem that I wanted to solve. And in order to do that, I had to change the compensation model. So
Mm.
theory is built off of a flat monthly retainer. I mean, I obviously have to be a smart business owner too, and we have to get paid. But I wanted to be able to deliver white glove service from day one, be objective in our ability to guide. The other thing about the AUM model is it inherently makes advisors biased towards stocks and bonds because that's how they get paid. But sometimes a real estate strategy could have tax benefits that in a high income year could be very compelling.
Yeah.
And the financial planner in me wants to actually like pursue that and practice the craft of good financial planning. So I had to change the model and I
Mhm.
wanted to serve this incredibly underserved demographic. And so that's how theory was born.
I love that because it is greed motivated. When you look at the financial industry, I always feel like I'm being sold a product because it benefits the advisor and I'm being told it benefits me. Like I have been introduced to a planning that I was like, I look back and I've been reevaluating it over the last few years because I'm like, this wasn't designed for me. This is like, and as I talk and I dive deeper, because I'm not a financial advisor, so I didn't know all the income they were making off what I had in the money that was there. And I was like, if I had known that, I might have requested either a different financial advisor or I might have shopped around a little bit more because in that case, my parents don't have a financial advisor at the time when I was looking for mine. There wasn't anybody to recommend. I came from a corporate background and nobody there was talking wealth building strategies. They're just trying to survive their career. So like my immediate circle of individuals, there wasn't anybody really to go to and say, hey, what makes sense for what I want to create in my life and how am I going to take this? Like I really met I really wish I had met you and all these women like 10 years ago when I was building these incredible businesses and I just never was able to keep the money. I was in that perpetual hamster wheel of always doing business to create the next dollar, not knowing there was a wealth strategy that I could have been using the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, where the heck were like I say where were you all, but at the same time, 10 years ago, we just kind of talked about it's like we were all starting to realize something's wrong with this system.
Absolutely. And the thing that I want to emphasize is that's not your fault. That's a failure of the industry. And I will give a ton of credit to like one of my nerdy idols in the industry is Michael Kitces. And he's done so much to create a community around people who want to give financial advice, like
Mm.
truly want to take that more holistic approach. And so for anyone listening, there's something called XYPN Network, and that gives you a directory to financial planners who want to take that more holistic approach and have more innovative fee structures.
We definitely need to make sure that is in the show notes for our audience so they can click on that link because I think that's often the conversation I have with women too. It's like I don't know who to go to. Like I don't know who to trust. I don't
Mhm.
know who's got my best interest at heart and who's just trying to, sell me some sort of financial planning that benefits them on the back end. And, I've talked with a financial planner and it was a gentleman and he's like, yeah, he's like, I've got to raise my portfolio to this much. That way I get paid this much. And I was like, you're just chasing the money. You're not even caring about the human being behind it. Like,
Right, exactly. That's how
and I
they're
hear that.
trained. That is how they're trained. You go to any industry conference, you get on any industry call, and they say like 80-20, 80-20, like, focus on the 20% that's bringing in 80 and then cut the bottom. So it's like that's where business owners get really ripped off is they typically end up being in that bottom tier and they're not really getting any guidance on what to do with that money. So,
So
yeah.
what does that journey look like? So what is that wealth creation journey for somebody that is an entrepreneur that is not in that bracket? What does a wealth journey look like and from your perspective? And then we'll talk about some of the mistakes that you're seeing founders make on this way.
So at the end of the day, a sound financial plan is just answering three questions. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how do
Mm,
I get there? And I think analogies can be powerful and memorable. So I like to describe the wealth creation journey like we are hiking and descending a mountain together over your lifetime. And so to start that journey, we have to set up base camp, right? We have to figure out where we're starting from. What that means in the context of financial planning is we need to define your net worth and we need to gain clarity around your cash flow.
yes.
What does it cost to live Katrina's life? Most people cannot answer that question. Most people don't really have a solid idea of what they're spending on a monthly basis. And I also love to say, like, no shade. I mean,
I was there. I could probably say if you had talked to me 4 years ago, I could say that's exactly it. I didn't know what I needed just to survive and I didn't know what I needed to have or wanted to have a comfortable life, right?
Hmm.
And so I didn't understand those distinctions. I was just doing to do because that's all I knew. I was swimming in the water, which everybody else was.
Right, exactly. And life is busy. It takes discipline and like a conscious act to sit down and recalibrate. And
Hmm.
that's why I put partners in the name. Like we are your partner in doing that exercise with you and having these like natural moments where we can step back and recalibrate and reevaluate. So to get back to the mountain analogy, so we figure out your net worth, we figure out your cash flow. That gives us a lot of information because when people want to transition into work becoming optional or
Mm.
financial freedom, we are typically aiming for at least a continuation of lifestyle. And so if you come into me and tell me that you're spending $25,000 a month, and I say, okay, Katrina, when do you want work to become optional for you? And you say at age 60, I say, okay, we have, let's say, 20 years to build a portfolio that supports you living a $25,000 a month lifestyle. That's like the overarching peak that
Okay.
every entrepreneur needs to be. That's the North Star that we need to be aiming for, no matter what, because there will come a day where you're going to have to move on from your business, whether it's because you are selling, whether it's because of a health event, whether it's because you're just ready to put it down and enjoy time with your family. But that takes years to position you for that.
Mm.
And there may be many other peaks along the way. Like you might want to send your kids to private school. You may want to spend summers in Europe. You may I
Your
don't
world
know.
starts to expand, right? So like you
Yeah,
have a North Star, but then you kind of think like as that wealth planning and as those things come into place, you go, what else can I do? Right? Like
right.
you have like this, what else might life look like?
And all these things start to reinforce themselves
Mm.
because the more you start to it's just like Monopoly, like the more you start to build assets, the easier it is to move around the board. The more banks like you, the easier lending is. So the hardest part for most people is just getting the habit started
Mm.
of saving and investing and building up those chess pieces, if you will. And then the real fun is like when you've built the chess pieces and then you can start to move them around the board in the way that serves you. And so it's really like a game, at the end of the day, but you have to do the boring thing and the responsible thing for a long time
Yeah.
to build up the fun thing. I'll give like a really quick example. So when I started my first job, even though I had a $200,000 student loan debt, I took like a three-pronged approach. So I saved money into my emergency savings fund. I was paying down my student loans, and then I did the 401k because there was a 401k match. And so, that's like free money. So I did those three for 7 years. And then COVID hit, and they rolled out the CARES Act. And they said you can liquidate your retirement account without paying the 10% penalty, and you can spread the tax liability over 3 years. So I still had, because of the interest, like $180,000 in student loans. So I took the money we were saving from not going to 5 weddings, plus the money I had saved over that 7 years, and paid off half of my student loans and liquidated my retirement accounts. And the reason why I did that is because I knew I was switching from being an employee to being a business owner and that I was going to be opened up to other super powerful wealth creation vehicles through being a business owner. So I was like, I know that's not the right like CFP paper answer, but it was like the right answer for me.
I'm going to
And
pause right there because I want my listeners to hear that she knew closing a career asset opened up a wealth building asset and a business owner, and she had more options available to you. I want to make that very clear to our audience because I think oftentimes that gets skimmed over. But having your business, I don't want you to think of it as soul sucking your life away. I want you to really look at it as, okay, how am I using this to build wealth? Because it's not the common conversation, even out in the digital marketing space where everyone's trying to promote, another strategy, another tactic. No one's talking about this. That's why it's so important to have Kaitlyn here because this is the conversation we're having.
yeah, exactly. Like knowledge is power,
Yeah.
right? And so I was already a financial advisor. I was already reading through the CARES Act for clients. Like that was my job. And then
Mm.
I was like, wait a second, this applies to me. So I was paying 8% interest to Navient on $188,000. And I thought like they had the government had frozen the loans. So I was like, this is my one chance to get at the principal. Everything I was putting towards the loans was going towards the principal. So I was like, it's now or never.
Right.
So I
It was going
liquidated.
towards the interest. Everything you were putting was going towards the interest. Now you can
Yes.
tackle the principal. Yes.
Yes. So this was like a golden opportunity, but I had built up the reserves to capitalize on it over 7 to 8 years. So I did the boring thing for 7 years, and then I got to do the fun thing when COVID hit, which is pay off those freaking loans to Navient, which is the worst. I'm sorry, but like, so we liquidated my 401k, we liquidated my checking account, like my savings, sorry. And then we took a loan against my husband's 401k
Mm,
because typically 401k loans are limited to $50,000 or 50% of the value, whichever is more, but it
greater.
can't go past 50,000. With the CARES Act, they upped it to 100,000.
Mm,
So we took a $100,000 loan against my husband's 401k and paid off the rest. So
wow.
rather than paying Navient 8%, we were paying ourselves 4.25% because you pay yourself the interest on a 401k loan.
Correct.
Like that is where knowledge is power. Like, so my student loans are now paid off 13 years early.
Mm. Such a relief. That's like a whole weight off your shoulders around that. And
Yeah,
I
that's
love what you said too, is like sometimes you have to do the boring things to position yourself. And I hear this all the time. It's like you've got to be able to position to take advantage because there are always opportunities that can come up. But if you don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to take advantage of it, that's I think the missing that so many of us experience. And we're like, ah, if I, I was like, if I only had invested in this or done this, or if I missed this opportunity. And a lot of times, like you didn't have the financial like piece in place to even be able to take advantage, even of a portion of that.
right. And like the thing is, this is our job. So for our clients, it's not like our job is to know this stuff,
You're right.
but they need to know where they are on the mountain,
Yeah.
what options are available to them, and what their marching orders are. Like they're business owners, so they should only be focused on growing the business. That's going to make all the rest of this work. And so like that's where we collaborate with them to figure out, okay, what paths do we want to take? What
Mm,
options do we have? And what are the moves that we're going to make on a 70-degree day versus a snowstorm day?
yeah.
Like, with business, there are seasons, but you
Yeah.
can always make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
And that's our job. So that's essentially what we do is we quantify and develop a strategy, but then also figure out this was one of the biggest missing pieces because most financial advisors view businesses as like a black box, like a black box line item on a balance sheet. But
Mm,
for us, like we go in there, we work very closely with the CFO to figure out like what does this business need to do for Katrina and get absolute clarity on that. Like this business needs to be paying her $5,000 a month in distributions in order to make her financial plan work. Okay, you bring that to the CFO. How do we reverse engineer the revenue metrics, the packages, what have you, to ensure like the business needs focus and that it should be focused in the sense that it is working for you versus
yes.
like you working for it.
Yeah,
So
yes,
we
that bears repeating over and over again. The business should be working for you. You should not be working for your business. And I'm exhausted from watching women say, I don't pay myself, or I don't need to pay myself, or I got to take care of everybody first. I'm like, no, we need to build in a profit and owner's comp strategy from day one so you know what to get paid looks like. Otherwise, this is a charity and it's not a business.
absolutely. And the thing is, like, that might work for a period of time, but eventually you will become resentful and tired and burned out. It's just human nature.
Mm. So, what's some of the biggest mistakes you see founders make?
I would say the biggest one that I can think of is not knowing that this financial freedom number exists and needs to be funded. Because like time is passing, time is your greatest asset when it comes to investing.
Yep.
And time is passing whether you like it or not. So like when I started my business, I ran this exercise for myself and my number came out to be saving and investing $13,000 a month.
Okay.
So from day one, now I was making $0 when I started Theory. So like I didn't just turn around and then start saving $13,000 a month. But it informed so much of my pricing structure and the way that I was going to grow the firm and my vision for the future because I knew that that number existed and needed to be funded. So I would say that's probably the biggest
I
mistake.
would agree because I sat at a conference the other day or a couple months ago, and the guy on stage, so somebody in the audience said, "How do you figure out your pricing structure?" He's like, "Make it up,
Oh my
charge
God,
more."
no,
Like,
no.
oh my gosh, like that's the advice they're getting from individuals. And I then didn't question, what does your financial background or like business actually look like? Do you really, really know? Because I feel like you're pitching or offering a service, and it wasn't in the financial industry, but that blasé approach from a speaker on stage to an audience sitting there, they're like, just make it up.
Oh my gosh, that is gives me hives.
Yeah, right. I'm like, but even I now know, working with my business partner and CFO, I have a much clearer financial picture than I'd ever had in the 2 decades of all the mentorship that I've gotten, all the business coaching, all the lead generation, all the ways to have contracts, do this. Nobody talked about what's your number. It was like the taboo subject unless you were the 1% of everybody in that group because you were totally excluded from that conversation, which is, I think, what you said. Like, I started theory because there's a missing for all of us that are coming in and building generational wealth for the first time.
The other thing that's super interesting from like a human behavior standpoint is because I've had a few clients who are like, this is revolutionary. We could, we have a lot of clients that are like Instagram famous, if you will. And they're like, this is life changing. I could promote this for you. And then they come back and they're like, wow, wealth is really hard to sell. And I'm
Hmm.
like, it is because it's boring. You have to be disciplined and have strong habits. And it is boring and it should be boring.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's just human nature sort of to go for that like shiny object syndrome. And so people will opt for the like, make more money, do ads, blah, 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 versus like, yeah, focusing on the stewardship side of things. So
Yeah.
it's just fascinating to observe. But
Yeah.
interestingly, we start to get a lot of people in their 40s
Mm.
because they start to realize, like, okay, I'm not immortal. And now I'm starting to look at 50, and yeah, I kind of got to get my stuff together.
Yeah, so this kind of leads into the next question. I know we're at the top of our conversation, but this is such a and I know my listeners are like leaning into this, right? Because this is such a beautiful conversation because nobody's having this with us. So, as a business owner, why is it important to diversify beyond the business? So, we have the business, we're taught the model, we're generating revenue, we're told to reinvest back in our business, we're not told to self-invest in ourselves or work on a back-end product. So why is it so important for business owners, specifically even women? And I know we haven't even touched on that one, but why is this so important for women to diversify beyond their business?
It's such a great question. So, the best way that I summarize the answer to this is wealth is built through concentration, it is preserved through diversification.
Mm,
We want to start to take your business, which is your original money machine, your original wealth creation vehicle, and diversify it into other wealth creation vehicles because this is a long, slow process. And it's fine to be living and dying by business performance if you're in the first 5, maybe 10 years. It's not okay to be living and dying by business performance when you're 20, 30, 40 years in. That's why we need to diversify away from the business over time. And everyone's version of that is going to look different.
yes.
For a lifestyle company where it's like a coach or consultant or like a personal brand where the business really can't run without you, it is super essential because your saving and investing is what's going to secure your financial freedom. If you're running an enterprise business where you have an asset that can stand on its own and you're going to sell that, there's going to be a little less pressure on the saving and investing. But if you can save and invest and build diversification away from the business, it will lessen the pressure on the sale. And I can assure you from witnessing this that buyers know when a seller needs to sell. And
Oh
so
God, yes.
if you come to the deal table and you are unattached to the sale, it just puts you in such a stronger position to sell your company.
Hmm.
Both of these concepts take decades to position people for. So that's why it's important.
And I love that you said that too, and especially speaking because I know there's a lot of influencers, there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of consultants that are out there that are building great, 6, 7, even 8-figure businesses. And then there's no wealth strategy going on in the background. So they're just always feeling they've got to pitch, do a webinar, do something. It's freaking exhausting. I've been there, done that. Don't like it. I mean, I redesigned the business model for women because I was exhausted in how we were teaching women how to run a business. Like it doesn't serve us for how we think and everything else. So I did have a question, and you can defer. I don't, I can always edit this piece out, edit. We're working with women that are at 7 to 8 figures. That's like who you really want to serve. Is that group growing or is it shrinking or is it staying the same?
That's a good question. I would like to think that it's growing. I'm part of two communities that are built for that cohort. And even when I started Theory back in 2020, I went to an event in 2021 and there was only like one community and it was pretty small. Now there are like multiple communities for that level of entrepreneur and they have different women in them. So that makes me think that it's growing. I also think what's really cool is, Gen Z is now looking at role models. Like I had no role models. The only two female entrepreneurs I knew were Sarah Blakely and Jessica Alba. And there's no one else to look at. It's like the generation behind us. Now it's like, oh, representation, like it matters. They actually have role models they can look up to. And so I would hope that we continue to see it grow, especially as Gen Z women are coming into the workforce and seeing like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it.
That is my hope too, because the statistics of seeing only 3% of women are millionaires in their business, I feel like that stat hasn't changed in like a
Hmm.
decade. And so that
Hmm.
had me kind of ponder the questions like if we're going through and we're saying this, but it hasn't even moved a percentage forward, like I'm also very concerned about the women that have either touched that realm and still weren't able to stay at that space. And so my hope and wish for the world is that with our listeners or women, like you listen to Kaitlyn, you listen and you have the experience of saying it's okay to build a wealth strategy because it's a legacy and it doesn't have to look how it's always looked. It doesn't have to feel as if it's always felt. Right. And I think with what you're doing, Kaitlyn, is that you're in a listening, and I love the holistic. And I feel like if that spread or replaced the industry as a whole, which I know is not going to happen overnight, I think that's is kind of where we're pushing towards. So wrapping up this episode, this we call it "Did She Really Say That?" So has there ever been a moment as you've been building the building your business and supporting women that you've said something or done something and a client or somebody looked at you and said, "Did she really just say that?"
Oh my goodness. Maybe the spiciest thing I've ever said is if your business isn't helping you achieve financial freedom, then it's a hobby, which we kind of touched on.
And did she really
And
say that? Yes.
the other one I'm going to say is my feelings about Bitcoin. And our professional stance on Bitcoin is that it's still considered a speculation. It is not considered an investment. And that's for two reasons. The first one is it's not regulated. The second one is there's no way to value it. So you're essentially being sold a story that doesn't have a really clear value proposition
Or purpose.
or a purpose, right? Like there were many purposes that were sold in theory that have not proved out. And so I think, I don't know, that's probably my hottest take.
I love it. No, you've dropped some really gold nuggets during this entire episode. I love every conversation. And for all of our listeners out there, if you just resonate with what Kaitlyn has shared with you, definitely connect with her. I know she is offering consultations, so you can got her link inside the show notes. You can schedule some time with her. That is, our gift. That's her gift to you. And I find it interesting. There's so many times that we're afraid to pick up the phone or have a conversation because we're going to be sold something. But Kaitlyn's really just here to listen and support you and, find out where you're at and if it's a good fit. As she said as I said in the very beginning with her introduction, she doesn't take everybody. And you want that discretion when you work with individuals. So having the call, she might be able to guide you, recommend other things. And she's got the network in the background and the experiences you've heard through today's show to be able to support you in doing that. So connect with her. And again, all my women out here, if you've heard anything on here, you're like, I know another woman that needs to hear this, or I know another friend or sister or mother that would benefit from this, then share this information with them. Together, we get stronger, we get better educated, and we can shift and really take our business to the next level. So, I thank you for listening to today's episode of Did She Really Say That? Kaitlyn, thank you for being our amazing guest, and we'll see you all on the next episode. If today's conversation hit home, don't just listen, take the next step. Download the free Create Her Authentically guide at createherplanner.com/free and discover how to build your business in alignment with your natural rhythm. And if you love this episode, please leave a review. It helps more women find the show. I'll see you in the next episode.